BetOnline is your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season. From baseball, golf, soccer, and all the top fights in UFC, MMA, and boxing. Every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our over 150 slots games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Use promo code BLEAV for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. Bet online. The game starts here.
And welcome back to another episode of the Bleed Los podcast, a weekly rewind edition dropping on this Monday off day. Dodgers kind of had a split on their 6-game homestand. We saw what happened during the Diamondback series. Christian Walker pretty much owned the Dodgers. He turned into Babe Ruth that entire series. He's kind of been one of those, players that has owned the Dodgers throughout his career since he was claimed off waivers way back a couple years ago in, I believe, 2018. He's just kind of had the Dodgers numbers. He's definitely had Clayton Kershaw's number in the past as well. Dodgers dropped that series, losing 2 of the 3 games there. They now have a losing record to not only the San Diego Padres in the National League West, but now they can add the Arizona Diamondbacks. So coincidentally, the 2 teams that have recently kicked them out of the postseason have a winning record against the Dodgers team. But fear not, because the Dodgers rebounded quite well with their series win over the Milwaukee Brewers, taking 2 out of 3. They didn't quite have enough for the sweep today, but it was an interesting start for Sunday because we had one of the Dodgers' top prospects, Justin Wrobleski, make his MLB debut. And joining us on the show, a first-time welcome, Bruce Kuntz. You guys should know him. He is well on his way almost to, I believe, 9,000 followers. He is my go-to guy when it comes to Dodgers prospects. So it's obviously been a big week in terms of, the Dodgers pipeline right now because of, the injuries and kind of the setbacks we've had with certain players. But Bruce, you do a lot of work. You currently are writing for Dodgers Digest. You do some work for Just Baseball Media or the Just Baseball Talk Show. But yeah, I'll let you introduce yourself and anything else you want to show to our listeners.
I appreciate it, Cody. Yeah, I'm happy to be on here. Like you said, I write for Dodgers Digest and Just Baseball. Everybody can find me on Twitter at bnicholas7, spelled Nicholas like the golfer Jack Nicklaus. So that's where pretty much everything that I write and post lives. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. A lot to talk about. Like you said, Wrobleski making his debut today. There's been a lot of stuff going on the farm, so I'm happy to cover all of it.
Yeah, and let's just get right into it, before we kind of go over the D-back series a little bit. It was a big start today for, another left-handed pitcher in Wrobleski. What did you see from him today? Were you satisfied? Because, he still gave the Dodgers a decent amount of innings, just kind of only 2 mistakes today, and that wasn't really the difference maker as the Dodgers bullpen really couldn't keep it close for the rest of the game. Dallas Keuchel ended up, turning back the clock and, shutting out the Dodgers, even though he allowed 5 walks. But what did you see from Wrobleski today? And do you think he's going to make an impact for maybe a couple more starts, especially with Bobby Miller being kind of, they want to give him extra rest, and Clayton Kershaw's still far away. Walker Buehler's still, delayed in his comeback right now. So what did you see, and what are you expecting for the next couple weeks with this guy?
Yeah, I definitely think that obviously the line doesn't look the best from today. 4 earned runs and 5 innings is not really what you hope for, but I think he pitched better than that line would show. Like you said, it was the 2 home runs that accounted for all 4 of those runs. And I think he was impressive, especially early in the game. Came out firing. He clearly was not afraid of the big league hitters and was just filling up the strike zone. And that's the same profile that he carried through the minor leagues. So I thought it was good to see him get to the majors and continue to pitch the way that he knows how to pitch. The command is there. And I think that even though the line didn't look the best in the end, winds up with the loss, all of that, I think today solidified that he'll be back in the majors for sure down the stretch this year. And I think he's ready to contribute good innings for the Dodgers. Today, at the beginning of the start, I think the best parts of his profile showed. And yeah, I think this guy is going to be a big piece in LA for not only down the stretch this year, but I think for years to come as well.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting to see what the Dodgers are pitching wise, because, a couple weeks ago, I had a conversation with Clint from, All Dodgers, and I was kind of saying, we were saying, the plethora of Dodgers arms, they could probably trade away some of these pieces. And it goes to show how quickly that can change right now, because at the moment, the Dodgers, multiple insiders around the league are saying that the Dodgers' biggest need isn't a bat, despite what the bottom of the order has done. It is starting rotation depth, and that's just because of the question marks, with, Tyler Glass now reaching his career high in innings, with Yamamoto being on the shelf right now. Looking at this Phillies series that's coming up, they have 2 confirmed starters. That last game is, kind of TBA right now, but it would line up for, him, Justin, getting another crack at it. Do you think that the Dodgers will keep him around, or do you expect him to kind of get optioned down to the minor leagues in the coming days?
I'd expect he'll go back down. The Dodgers have 5 starters on the roster right now, since they've continued to keep Landon Knack up in the majors. So I would think they'll send Wrobleski back down tomorrow. One thing to keep in mind that I think makes his performance today even more impressive was he's only pitched 2 AAA games. Obviously, the Pacific Coast League is not the best place to be for development as a pitcher, but to only have pitched 2 AAA games and the beginning of the year, 13 starts in AA were his first experience at that level too. So this guy just does not have a lot of games under his belt, even in the upper minor leagues. And I think that he could still benefit from going back down to AAA and working on some things. I do think that he'll be back. This was earlier than I expected him to get called up this year. I thought that he was probably going to wind up getting a start or 2 here and there, maybe later in the season, but this was a little bit earlier. I like it. I think he was ready, but I don't think that he's quite at the point where he'll stay on the major league roster for now.
Yeah, and to go to your point, I was kind of surprised that they gave him the call over somebody. I thought, maybe they were going to give, just another spot starter, whether maybe you call up an extra arm and do a bullpen game, someone to eat innings, maybe have Ryan Yarbrough start the game. You already got the series win. No use of, calling up a minor leaguer, especially, Eric Steven from True Blue LA put out an interesting stat. This is the first Dodgers pitcher or player, I think it's pitcher, that was born in the year 2000. And just to go show how young this guy is, he was only made his AA debut this year. Like you said, 13 starts, 2 AAA starts. I know pitching in the PCL, it's a hitter's league. It's not too good for pitching development. So I imagine, I agree with you. I think he probably will get optioned down to the minors, work on whatever stuff he still needs to work on. But if he's not involved in a trade, it wouldn't be hard to imagine, especially down the stretch, him getting some meaningful innings to kind of help alleviate the innings between the starters that we hope that are playing in October. But it's kind of before we transition, fellow writer on Dodgers Beat, Mike Salas, he has written, Wrobleski is one of the untouchables that he does not want to trade. Would you kind of classify him in that same category, especially if the Dodgers are being hyper aggressive this deadline and his name comes up in trade talks? Would you hold on to him?
I would start with this saying I don't think that there are very many guys that fall under the umbrella of untouchable in the first place in terms of prospects. I value Wrobleski very high. I think that he's a really talented player and he's going to be around for a while. That said, I wouldn't call him untouchable, but I don't know if there really is a guy in the Dodger farm system that I would classify that way right now. There's guys that are very valuable, and that is Wrobleski, River Ryan, Dalton Rushing, Josue de Paula. Those guys are all extremely talented prospects that are going to be really big pieces moving into the future. But I don't think that there really is anybody that heading into this deadline, if the Dodgers are able to, go for the very top talent that could be available. I don't know if there's anybody that is completely off the table. I think that I've seen Tariq Skubal potentially mentioned as maybe tradable. And if a guy like that is even remotely available, then you can't even go to the table until you allow everybody to be, available to be talked about. So I wouldn't say that Wrobleski is worth excluding from those conversations, but I would say that it would have to bring back a really, really talented and controllable player for him to be involved.
Yeah, and I'm glad you yourself kind of have shared your feelings, on social media, in your articles, because the Dodgers this season, it is a little bit different. It seems like not many prospects are considered untouchable, especially in years past where like the only 2 that I could really think of that the Dodgers held to that standard were, Corey Seager and Julio Urias. That was like the 2 that they were trying to build around, that they, shot down every trade conversation. So especially seeing this season, I think the Dodgers do a pretty good job in terms of draft and development, and especially when since 2013 they have drafted regularly pretty low, considering they've been top in payroll and had one of the better records in baseball in that time. So I put out a tweet on X the other day where I was saying it's kind of like a cycle of life. The Dodgers, they draft, develop these guys, and trade them for major league assets. And like you said, if a guy like Skubal is mentioned, I feel like it's pretty much anybody's available at that point, and I think that's for good reason.
And I think that applies to every organization in baseball. When a guy like Skubal, he's a top 5 starter in the major leagues. Anybody like that, you can't really have a such thing as an untouchable prospect unless it's someone like Jackson Holliday or James Wood. That pretty much ends the conversation there. And yeah, I think the state of the farm system right now, it's in an interesting spot. Dalton Rushing, Josue De Paula, there's guys that Wrobleski and River Ryan I already mentioned too, that I think they all have top 100 prospect kind of potential and ability. I think that the depth of the farm system is where it thrives. That's how it's always been for the Dodgers, and I don't think that part has changed. But yeah, it is a little bit of a different feel up at the top. Those guys are all very talented, but there isn't a bona fide super prospect in the system right now like there has been in past years, whether that's Bobby Miller or you mentioned like going all the way back to Corey Seager. It doesn't have that kind of feel at this point.
And before we move on, it was an interesting thing. So on Bleacher Report, they posted their farm system, mid-season power rankings, and the Dodgers ranked kind of middle in the pack in terms of the rankings. I believe they were 17 on that list, somewhere in there. A lot of people, we've had this conversation on this show as well, where, in terms of the trades and the names that are out there, a lot of fans, kind of think that the Dodgers don't have what it takes to get a deal done, especially compared to a team like you mentioned, the Baltimore Orioles. They have so many top prospects that they can just kind of trade away at will. Doesn't mean that they will do that, but do you think the Dodgers, looking at the names you've mentioned, do you think they have enough firepower to, to get a big trade done?
I definitely think they do. There's a lot of depth to trade from, and there's a lot of guys that even if they're not top 100 prospects now, they might be in a couple of years. I think the idea of the Dodgers being, ranked 17th, if that's what it was in the Bleacher Report article, I don't agree with that, because I think that depth is something that really matters in a farm system, and the Dodgers have more guys that could become major leaguers than any other organization in baseball. And I think that's something that is very valuable. And I think that makes up for the maybe not as many top 100 prospects as there has been in past years. But this farm system is still a really good one. There's a lot of depth to trade from. And there's also some guys that, have some major league time that could wind up being talked about, whether that's James Outman, if you're talking with the White Sox about potentially getting Luis Robert. There's a lot of situations there, guys that could be mentioned and could definitely bridge the gap with some of those other organizations that have the many top 100 prospects to deal from. I think the Dodgers can compete with them in trade talks.
Yeah, and then let's get back to the major league level. So right now we're seeing a guy that spent a majority of his time in OKC, and that's Miguel Vargas. And there's been a couple reports with Max Muncy. His oblique just really isn't healing the way that the Dodgers and he had hoped. It seems like every report I see is that Max Muncy's starting to feel balls again. Max Muncy's starting to take swings, and then the very next day, Max Muncy's body just didn't recover well, and we're going to shut him down for right now. Looking at the outlook, it doesn't look like this guy's going to be back anytime soon. Even before he got shut down this past, I believe it was on Saturday where that report came out, Dave Roberts, came out and said, we're looking at way past the All-Star break. So we're looking maybe an August return. Now with him getting another setback, is it September? Is it potentially season ending? Well, the Dodgers may have a solution, and it's something that a lot of fans have kind of been clamoring for. And Roger, the producer of the show, he was covering the team, and he saw Miguel Vargas starting to take reps at third base. This is the guy's position where he naturally came up through the Dodgers system, was a third baseman. They shifted him to second base. They shifted him to left field, and now it looks like he may have an opportunity here. Are you one of the fans that are looking to give Miguel Vargas way more playing time?
I think he's earned more playing time for sure. I think talking about third base is it's tough because there is a reason the team moved him out to left field. And when the organization has him show up to spring training and flat out stop taking reps in the infield. That does mean something. So I think that having him take ground balls at third, it's a good idea. Hoping that maybe he can be passable there is something that I think is definitely worth at least giving a look to, because with the way he's swinging the bat right now, he has to be in the lineup somehow. So yeah, I think that it's worth giving it a look, but I'm not quite sure how well he'll perform in games if he's put there at third base. But as long as he's, posting a 950 OPS or wherever he's at right now, then that makes up for it. So as long as he keeps swinging the bat like he is, then put him anywhere that you can get him in the lineup.
The other revolving fan theory is that the Dodgers are being very selective of where they play Miguel Vargas and what opportunities they put him in, because they want to showcase, top value in terms of making him, one of those trade chips that, he's been involved in talks prior to this season, and more than likely is going to be in talks, this deadline coming up in the next 3 weeks. Do you think the Dodgers are kind of putting him in an opportunity to succeed, to dangle him in a potential trade?
I don't buy into that one quite as much, because I think that the ultimate way that you could showcase to other teams that he's a valuable trade asset is to play him as much as possible and have him have success in that kind of a role, because that's the only role that a team would want to trade for him to, plug him in as an everyday left fielder. That would be the way he's advertised. And I think ultimately the Dodgers are more focused on having him help the team right now as best as he can, more than thinking about the deadline or anything like that. The Dodgers do a good job, and they always have, of getting their guys in the best positions to succeed for them outside of any other, possibilities with trades or anything like that. And so far in the year, the best opportunities for Miguel Vargas to be successful have been against left-handed pitching. He rakes left-handed pitching. He has all the way through the minor leagues, but he's hit so well that it's starting to become obvious that he needs to be in the lineup even more. With Jason Hayward's injury, I think that opens up a little bit more playing time, because I don't think that they're going to have to start Outman every single game against right-handed pitching. So that opens up some starts in left field potentially for Vargas. But even when Outman is in, with the way he's swinging it, I don't know how you don't try third base. Chris Taylor's been playing a lot of third base, especially in this last week. Kevin Biggio hasn't been great since he got here, and he's been out of the lineup a few days in a row now. So I think Vargas at third while Muncy is out is at least something worth trying. And if it's a complete train wreck, then you just go back to where you were before and say he's a left fielder only. Let's just try and get him starts when we can.
Yeah, and I think that's where I wish the Dodgers, at least just come out and try it. Say if it fails miserably, then at least they can say, well, we tried it. It didn't work. We don't have to hear fans complain about it anymore because we saw what he did out there. I think he can be a serviceable enough third baseman. Max Muncy isn't a Gold Glove defender out there either. It's kind of been a work in progress year after year. And it is kind of in the similar situation, because Muncy, has shifted all around the Dodgers infield since the Dodgers got him way back, I believe, in 2017, 2018, where, he came up as a second baseman. He went to first base, went back to third base, and he's been all over. And Miguel Vargas, while it's been a little bit more extreme where they pushed him in the left field and didn't even give him any reps at third base or in the infield at all this season, I think it shows that they're thinking about it, that they're starting to give him ground balls there now and giving him reps there. If Muncy's injury progresses, which I'm all in agreement that it probably is, do you think the Dodgers have some, outside the box idea of who they're going to get to replace that production, or do you think they're just going to try to, Dodgers way, solve it internally?
The trade deadline, if they believe that Muncy is really going to have a tough time getting back this season, I think that's the big question right now. If he were to get back in late August, even September, the organization would take that right now, would be my impression. And I think the concern is that he might not be back at all. And if that is something that feels like a realistic possibility, then I think heading into the deadline, they're going to have to try and address third base, because I think with the Vargas at third idea, it might be uglier than a lot of fans believe that it could possibly be. Like thinking about Max Muncy at third base last year, it wasn't pretty. Vargas might be even worse than that. Just the indication that they moved him not only off of third base to second base last year, and that partially had to do with Muncy already being there, but that did show something. And then moving him completely off the dirt this year, going months and months without reps in the infield, it would not be pretty. But as long as he's hitting that way, might be worth it. Once he gets to the playoffs, that definitely is a concern. I wouldn't want his glove at third base in the postseason when, one ground ball could change the outcome of the season. That would be a massive concern for me. So if that's something that the Dodgers feel like might be a worry, then I wouldn't be surprised to see them try and target somebody to play third base at the deadline. Could be Luis Rengifo from over in Anaheim, could be someone else. But if Max Muncy's injury is legitimately a concern to miss the rest of the season, they're going to have to do something.
Yeah, and it shows, like with Mookie Betts' injury, like it sucks, but it's a very typical injury. And the Dodgers have experienced it before in seasons past. Corey Seager had a very similar injury back in 2021, and they kind of knew, hey, it's just got to run its course, 6 to 8 weeks. We know he'll be back. Hopefully he'll, give him a couple, weeks to, play, and he'll be ready for October. With Max Muncy, it's a little bit different because, on this show we've talked about, who else had an oblique injury last year? Ryan Pepio. And he was out pretty much the entire season. He only made his debut coming back in, missing from opening day all the way until August. So Max Muncy, I hope he comes back because that's a guy that's a game changer with his at-bats and, his at-bat quality come October, especially the ability to get on base. The Dodgers surely do miss him right now. But if he's gone for the entire year, it's going to be interesting to see where the Dodgers attack the deadline because, I mentioned at the beginning of the show, starting rotation depth is a big thing right now. They want to bolster, the offensive production in the bottom of the order. But it's a conundrum right now, and it's only based on Max Muncy's health. If he's healthy, then they got it. If they know he can come back eventually. But like you said, the Dodgers, they kind of just don't know what they have right now. They don't know if they're going to get this guy back. So we'll go on to another guy that's kind of having a lot of questions thrown about around him. And it's kind of a guy that I've been a big fan of. I preach for the Dodgers to get this guy during the offseason. That's Tyler Glasnow. So Tyler Glasnow, he didn't have the best start his last time out. He hasn't really had the best couple starts, going into this week. But against the Brewers, he goes 6 innings. He does give up 5 runs, 4 of which were on a grand slam to Rhys Hoskins, a guy that you don't want to kind of leave anything over the plate to, and he ended up doing that. But I just feel like over the past couple weeks, his home run numbers are up. His strikeouts, he's still leading the National League in that. But the big concern for me is that he's getting very, very close to his career highs in innings pitched. And this is a guy that the Dodgers acquired not for regular season success. Obviously, they want some success, during the 162 season, but they want this guy for the postseason. This guy, his arsenal is fit for October, but the Dodgers need to get him to October. So looking at Glasnow, looking at his innings, do you think the Dodgers are going to have to get creative to kind of try to, load manage, Glasnow, their ace?
Yeah, I think they're going to have to do something. And it's a really tough situation right now with how the starting pitching as a whole has gotten a lot of injuries where they're trying to have to fill innings in the first place. That's why we had a guy like Wrobleski up to make this start to finish this series. And now all of a sudden, looking at Glasnow, they're going to have to do something, whether it's a phantom IL stint. I don't think that it's possible for them to just continue the runway and just keep letting him pitch because he'll run out of gas. Like you said, he's already had a couple of starts here in a row now where he's given up the long ball a little bit more often. It's impossible for us to know whether endurance or anything could be factoring into that. But like you said, he is close to reaching that career high in innings already, and calendar's just turned to July. So that is a concern. I think the Dodgers are going to have to do something to manage it. And that's going to make it even tougher to fill innings if they have to put Glasnow on the injured list or give him a break, anything like that. It's going to make it even tougher to fill those innings when it's already been a little bit of a problem. I think that looking at the All-Star break, that could provide an opportunity for them to try and schedule a little bit of a break for him around that stretch of games where they're not going to have to bring somebody else up to fill his innings. So I wouldn't be surprised if here soon maybe they put him on the IL, give him a couple weeks to just refresh, try and reload the tank, and then they'll activate him around August, and hopefully he can make it the rest of the way. But yeah, like you said, I think they're going to have to do something because inaction in this situation would be inaction, and that would be accepting that he might not be fresh for the playoffs.
Yeah, and then the devil's advocate response to this would be, this is the healthiest Tyler Glasnow's been in his entire career. The Dodgers, took a risk based off of that. He had I believe he's like 3 years removed from Tommy John surgery. Last year was his career high in innings, and that was like his first, full season removed from that surgery. So maybe the Dodgers and Glasnow feel comfortable. And, when we saw him be a workhorse in the beginning of the season, he was going 6, 7, 8 innings, could be going for complete game shutouts. There's a couple starts there and, the early parts of the season. But, I mean, did the Dodgers make a mistake there? We don't really know. Do the Dodgers, try to, pull back, the gas pedal a little bit with their starter? I think you're correct with the All-Star break is coming up. This is a golden opportunity to let this guy, rest, reset, get back on the horse once, we return back after, the second half starts. So with Glasnow, it's really just about him being healthy. And, we've seen the track record. I've defended it saying, it's just a lot of fluke injuries, kind of all going off of one injury right now. But with that being said, kind of reverting back to the farm real quick, over the next couple weeks, obviously the All-Star break's coming up, but is there anybody in the Dodgers farm system that could be getting the call to, kind of eat innings or kind of, field a position here or there? You're the guy that I know knows all these names right now, what they're doing in the minor leagues right now. What can you tell us about some potential names that could be coming up in the next couple weeks or months?
I'm expecting River Ryan is going to be getting the call sooner rather than later. He had a late start to the season, had a shoulder thing going on in spring training that caused him to start the season pretty late. I believe his first rehab appearance wasn't until the beginning of June. So it was a long break at the start of the year, but he's been progressively building up his pitch count since then. I think he went 4 innings in his last start, and that was his season high. So as he continues to build that up, and once he gets to a full workload, I don't think there's going to be much reason to hold him down too much longer. This guy is supremely talented. Fastball hits triple digits, really good off-speed stuff that starts with his slider. And I think River Ryan, once he's fully built up with the gap in innings pitched that the Dodgers already have, they need to fill innings, especially if Glasnow is going to be an issue. River Ryan is the guy that is right there and the obvious choice to step up and fill that hole. I honestly expected going into the year that Ryan was going to get the call before even Wrobleski. I think the shoulder thing for Ryan has complicated that a little bit since he's not fully built up. Otherwise, I think it would have been him getting this start over Wrobleski. But as Ryan is building back up, once he's back to a full workload, full pitch count, I think he'll be in Los Angeles shortly after that.
Yeah, and then kind of circling back to the Brewers series, kind of want to get your thoughts. The Milwaukee Brewers, they were not expected to be in contention right now. They have one of the best records in the National League. The Dodgers, took 2 of 3 in this series. They actually have, I believe, the best or one of the best records against teams over 500. But seeing this Brewers team kind of, face all adversity right now, are you surprised that the Brewers are at where they are right now at this point in the season?
It's been an impressive season for them in Milwaukee, for sure. I didn't expect them to be this good. I don't think a lot of other people did too. It takes a really tenacious ball club to lose Corbin Burns in the offseason, lose Devin Williams early on in the year to an injury, and still be this good. Christian Yelich has been massive in that. He looks like he's back to being himself, and he's a real force at the plate. Showed it in this series against the Dodgers with a couple of homers. But I think this team is impressive. They're definitely a concern for me looking over to the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised if they wind up being a team that the Dodgers meet. I'm glad the Dodgers won this series for all the implications there concerning home field once we get to the end of the year, because I think this Brewers team is here to stay at the top of the National League, and I think they're a serious contender.
Yeah, and then looking back at how the Dodgers played this past week, the Arizona series, we can kind of throw a lot of that stuff out the window. The starting pitching just wasn't there. The bullpen wasn't there. Christian Walker, like I mentioned, was, the second coming of Babe Ruth. But looking at this Brewers series, is there really anything we can take away? Like, what are you taking away from this series? Even though it is in the first half, but seeing the Brewers and Dodgers meet up right now, 2 of the top teams in the National League, what are you taking away from this, this outcome?
I think ultimately it was 2 good teams, and I'm glad the Dodgers took the series. I think looking ahead right now, the Dodgers aren't healthy, so to be able to still win the series at home without Betts, without Muncy, without Yoshinobu Yamamoto to start a game, I think that was good. And especially during this stretch right now where the Dodgers have not been playing their best baseball, it is important for them to have a contender come into Los Angeles and still be able to take that series. I think that probably will provide a bit of a boost for the locker room to know, hey, we're still the Dodgers, we're still arguably the best team in baseball, and that hasn't changed. I think the pitching staff for the Dodgers definitely is searching to get back on track a little bit. The bullpen's been struggling. This homestand was not pretty for those relievers, and the starting pitching has been struggling as well. So I think that is the immediate focus, try and get the pitching staff back on track and then get healthy, and the Dodgers will be the team we expect them to be come the postseason.
Awesome. And just two more things before we let you go. The first thing, the Dodgers, National League Gauntlet isn't over right now. So the very next series that they will start tomorrow night is against the Philadelphia Phillies. I'm here on the East Coast. I'm a Dodgers fan, that little speck here in the small state of Delaware. It's going to root for the boys in blue over here. But, the Philadelphia Phillies, they are legit this season. They have the best record, I believe, in baseball. They have the best record in the National League. They didn't win their series against the Braves this past weekend, but they still maintain, a really good offense, and they are about to, I believe they are activating Kyle Schwarber off the IL. They're probably at like 80 or 75% sure that Harper's going to be activated as well. Looking at this, this Philly series that's coming up, it's a big series. What are your expectations for the Dodgers meeting the Phillies, at this time of the year? Especially, disclosure, we haven't gotten to the trade deadline yet. If these teams do potentially meet in October, they're going to look totally different. But looking at this series right now in the beginning, first weeks of July, what are your expectations for this series coming up?
It's going to be a tough one for sure, going to Philly to face this team when the Dodgers aren't fully healthy and the pitching staff is struggling. That is a big assignment, makes things even worse that both Harper and Schwarber sound like they're going to be getting healthy and activated just in time for the series to begin. So it's not going to be an easy series. I think this is one that the Dodgers are going to have to try and carry this momentum from this past weekend against the Brewers and go in and see if they can try and win the series. That would be a big boost if they could. But I think also this is at the point in the year where the Dodgers know they're not fully healthy. Obviously, they want to do everything they can to win the series, but if they don't, it's not going to be the end of the world either. It's just another series on the schedule. So I think they'll go in, they'll compete as best as they can. Hope the pitching can bounce back a little bit here before the All-Star break gets here in mid-July. But heading in, just try and continue the momentum that they had from this past weekend against the Brewers and see what they can do.
Yeah, and then closing it out, obviously after today's game, or I believe it was even during the game, the Dodgers, they announced, and Major League Baseball announced the rest of the All-Star rosters. The Dodgers end up sending 6 players. It's, I believe, the third time since 2017 they've sent 6 or more. Congratulations to all the guys that have, got selected. Obviously, Shohei Ohtani was the leading vote getter at DH, so he was automatically voted in, and he will be in the starting lineup in Arlington. The other Dodgers that will be joining him, first time, Tyler Glasnow. That's kind of surprising for me. It's his first All-Star selection. Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman making it for their 8th time. Teoscar Hernandez and Will Smith making it for their 2nd time. But I want to get your opinions on if there was any potential snub from the Dodgers this year. I mean, obviously, there's going to be some inactives. Some players aren't going to play, so there is a possibility that the Dodgers do get to add some more players. But who's one guy that you think didn't get his spotlight?
I'll give you 2. I think Gavin Stone and Alex Vesia both have had seasons that are capable of being all-stars. I'm looking at both of them and hoping that they wind up getting in once all the inactives and shuffling all happens, as it does every year. But Stone, I was a little bit surprised to see him not get in right away. His last start might have hurt that, brought that ERA back over 3. If he had put together one more really excellent start, I think that might have did it. But that start against the Diamondbacks didn't go the best, so he didn't wind up making it in this first ballot. Alex Vesia, I think, also has been so good, and I think he's been overlooked a little bit. A lot of Dodger fans still don't feel fully comfortable when he enters out of the bullpen. There's been a lot of history there in the past few years, but I think ultimately, not only when you look at this season, but when you look at Alex Vesia's Dodger career, he's been fantastic, and I think that it would be really cool to see him get recognized and get named as one of the all-star reserves in the bullpen here in these next few weeks as all the shuffling happens.
Yeah, I was actually pretty surprised because the Dodgers, as it stands, I believe they still have the best, ERA in terms of, relief pitching in the National League. They're top 3 in all of baseball as well. To not have, arguably, I would say Vesia has probably been their best arm. Phillips, he's had a little bit of an injury this year that kind of sidelined him, and Vesia kind of stepped into that hybrid role. He closed some games, he pitched meaningful innings, and it's a complete 180 compared to last year, because last year was a big struggle for him. We recently had Alex Vesia on the program the other week, and he kind of talked about that adversity, kind of going through, the tribes and tribulations to go from last season's failures to this season's success. So I'm 100% in agreement with the two names that you put out there. And I imagine Stone probably will get added. There's already two. I think there's already a pitcher that already said that they're inactive, and that's the Phillies' Zach Wheeler. I feel like the next man up should probably be Gavin Stone. And I would say probably that start against the Diamondbacks probably did hurt his case a little bit. But I feel like if he gets another start right before the All-Star break and he gives the Dodgers a really good solid couple innings, I'm sure that he should get that nod as well. So the Phillies, I mentioned them. That's the team they're going up. They have 7, so the Dodgers were just underneath them. But are you going to tune into the All-Star game? Do you usually watch it? Do you watch just the Home Run Derby, or do you just kind of turn your TV off?
No, I'm there for all of it. All-Star Weekend is a blast. It's going to be cool to see it in Arlington this year. I'm interested to see how they'll attack all those themes. It's been funny to see like the Dodgers tweeting out all their players with the cowboy hat silhouettes and all of that. So there should be some interesting aesthetics going on. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. The Midsummer Classic is always a blast. And it's always great being a Dodger fan and watching that, because the Dodgers always have so many guys there. So pretty much at any moment you're seeing one of the Dodger players on the field. So yeah, it's always a blast.
All right, Bruce. I mean, it was a delight having you on, talking to you. It's finally good to see, put a voice to the tweets that I'm constantly seeing on my feed. I'm sure if Dodger fans, if you guys are listening to this and you don't follow Bruce yet on, social media, and you're not reading his articles on Dodgers Digest, you ought to, especially with the trade deadline coming up now. A lot of those players that he is, profiling, giving in-depth stats for, whether it's in his articles or on his Twitter feed, it is a great follow. And Bruce, you're doing such a great job. I've seen you rise each month in and month out, so credit to you. But one more time before we end the show, where can everybody find your work?
Appreciate it. My work all gets found on my Twitter X account, whatever you want to call it, bnicholas7. You can find me there. I do my writing for Dodgers Digest. That's where most of my Dodger prospect coverage goes. I also write a little bit for Just Baseball. And yeah, those are the 3 places. If you want to find me, follow me on Twitter, and that's where I post everything that I do. So yeah, Cody, I appreciate you for having me on here. This has been a fun time to talk, and yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and that'll about do it for this latest episode of the Weekly Rewind. We will be back extensively this week. We will have a Philadelphia Phillies preview with 2 Phillies beat writers right before this series kicks off with the leading National League team. But again, Bruce, thanks for coming on, and we'll see you guys for the next Rewind.
This episode has been brought to you by BetOnline. The game starts here.